Hi, my name is Betty Clark, and the other voice you will hear in this video is Jennifer Sweetfears. We created an integrated literature social studies 3-lesson unit focusing on the bombing in Birmingham and civil rights. We created this unit using 3 novels and a variety of literacy strategies. In the first lesson, we allow students to choose which of the 3 novels they will read and break into literature circles to read the novels. The second lesson focuses on ensuring students' comprehension of the novel they read by allowing them to stay in groups and create a presentation to share with the class. And the final lesson in our 3-lesson unit uses the writing strategy RAFT to allow students to focus their learning and share on an individual basis what they have learned. Jennifer is going to tell you about our rationale for this unit.
Our unit introduces the civil rights movement through novels and classroom discussion. 6th grade is a pivotal time for students, and they are just beginning to realize who they are. They are just beginning to develop their own opinions and are currently at an appropriate age to look at the history of our country and to make their own decisions on what happened. An introduction to the horrific events that happened at Birmingham will allow for discussions on racism, equality, and injustice. This unit is designed for a typical 6th grade classroom with a variety of levels of understanding regarding racism and the civil rights movement. Each literature assignment will end with a small group discussion or a whole class discussion, and adaptations will be made on an individual student basis to accommodate all levels of reading. As a result of this unit, the students should be able to identify some of the significant events that framed the civil rights movement. They will be able to evaluate the goals and objectives of the civil rights movement as a whole, identify and analyze the leaders of the movement and how they may have influenced the direction and focus. Students will be able to compare multiple perspectives written and discussed about the same issue so that students will effectively differentiate between historical facts, interpretations, and opinions. Common core content standards to be addressed include determining the meaning of words and phrases that are used in a text, including vocabulary specific to domains related to history and social studies. Analyze the relationship between primary and secondary source on the same topic. Cite specific textual evidence to support analysis of primary and secondary sources. Language arts Common Core standards will include determining or clarifying the meaning of unknown and multiple meaning words and phrases based on 6th grade reading and content, while choosing flexibility from a range of strategies. Acquiring and using accurately grade-appropriate general, academic, and domain-specific words and phrases. Gathering vocabulary knowledge when considering a word or phrase important to comprehension or expression. 3 novels will be used to help explain to students the lesson. The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963, by Christopher Paul Curtis. Last Chance for Justice, How Relentless Investigators Uncovered New Evidence Convicting the Birmingham Church Bombers, by T.K. Thorne. While the World Watched, a Birmingham bombing survivor comes of age during the Civil Rights Movement, by Carolyn Mull McKinstry.
Jennifer is now going to talk about the 3 books we chose to accompany our unit lesson plan.
We're using 3 books. The first one is The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963. The Watsons Go to Birmingham is a book of lessons on life in 1963 at the height of the civil rights era. These lessons are very applicable to where we are right now, and this book will open a discussion of the topic of justice or injustice rather, and racism. Students will develop their own comprehension of the injustice happening in the United States at the time through classroom evaluation of the vocabulary and the scenarios in the book. it's all told through the eyes of a student, so the book is relatable to these kids. The book will provide an opportunity for whole group as well as small group discussions and analysis. The second book that we're using in our lesson plan is Last Chance for Justice: How Relentless Investigators Uncovered New Evidence Convicting the Birmingham Church Bombers by T.K. Thorne. This book tells the story of the bombing at the Birmingham Baptist Church. It brought a great amount of sadness and obviously the death of the 4 young African American girls. This book is instrumental in telling students about justice and the process that happened after the bombing. The third book that we're using is While the World Watched: A Birmingham Bombing Survivor Comes of Age During the Civil Rights Movement by Carolyn Mall McKinstry. This book tells the after story and sort of allows for students to feel the severity of what happened during these heated times in the United States. It also gives a personal account of what happened that day as she was present as a 14-year-old young girl.
We've discussed the books and some of our rationale for the unit. Jennifer is going to explain the first lesson in our 3-part unit.
For the first lesson, we will introduce 3 book choices to our students. We will discuss the books, summarize, and provide some main ideas. Students will then jot down their first and second choices. We will divide the students into 3 relatively equal book groups, 1 group per each novel. We will then discuss the final date where their group must have the whole novel read. We will let them know that they are able to choose their own reading assignments prior to each meeting as long as they have the entire book read and discussed material for the final date. We will discuss our expectations for the literature circles. Groups will meet 2 times a week. Each time they meet, as well as completing the agreed reading, they must complete a new literature circle role. They will then explain the roles. Students will use the roles to conduct their group discussion. We will allow students to meet to discuss the first reading assignment and expectations they have of their fellow group members. They will also take their first literature circle sheet. They will then meet 2 times per week in their groups. Each time they will meet, they must bring the completed lit circle sheet and be prepared to discuss the reading. At the end of the book, students will discuss overall message and theme of the novel, work on formulating opinions, and sharing them in their group.
I am now going to explain the second lesson in our 3-part unit. The second lesson in our unit will help ensure student comprehension through the creation of group presentation. Students will remain in groups to create a presentation to inform the class about their novels. This lesson is a focused opportunity for students to review the books they read in the literature circles for our first lesson. Each group will be tasked with sharing their book with the class. The main idea for this share will be to allow students to compare and contrast the book they read with the books their peers read. Students will be required to include the following in their group presentation: a summary of the novel, including characters, setting, problem, and solution, what they learned about the time period, what things we expect as our rights now were not respected in the book, and each member of the group must also share something they would like to learn more about. The groups will be allowed to divide up their roles in the presentation as they see fit. They will be given time in the library on 3 different days to complete their presentation and practice time in the classroom before presenting. After the presentations to the class, we will discuss the books as a whole group. This big group discussion should really allow students to compare and contrast the books. Students should also become curious about different aspects their books did not cover but were covered in other students' books. This curiosity will play directly into the final lesson of this unit. The specific standards we will be covering in this lesson include: analyze the relationship between a primary and secondary source on the same topic. This Common Core standard will be covered in the conclusion of the lesson when, as a whole group, we analyze the novels and compare and contrast as a class on the board. The second standard that will be covered is acquire and use accurately grade appropriate general academic and domain-specific words and phrases. Gather vocabulary knowledge when considering a word or phrase as important to comprehension or expression. Students will do this when writing and preparing their presentation. An emphasis by us teachers will be placed on the vocabulary regarding this topic. We will expect students to gain an understanding of words like equality and racism and begin to use these words when talking about the books, about the time period, and presenting for the class. The final lesson in our three-part unit allows students to showcase the knowledge they have individually gained in the other two lessons of this unit. In this final lesson plan of our three-part unit, students will be required to write and research about the civil rights movement and the bombing in Birmingham. We have already done two very long lessons regarding the bombing in Birmingham. Students have read a novel about the topic, presented on the topic as a group, and participated in whole class discussions. The final lesson will be a paper without a lot of guidelines, allowing students to showcase their knowledge. We want students to show us what they have learned and what they are taking away from this lesson. Using RAFT, a writing strategy, students will determine their role as writers, the audience for their writing, the format of the writing, and their specific topic. Students will have a lot of opportunities to take this final project in cool directions. An example provided to students would be written in a role of a book character as a letter regarding equality. Students will be required to accurately cite and use their novel in their paper as well as at least two other sources. We will be providing them open library time several times a week for researching and typing, as well as classroom time to draft and plan the paper. We will be providing support as students need it during the writing process. The Common Core standards covered in the final lesson include: analyze the relationship between a primary and secondary source on the same topic. Cite specific textual evidence to support analysis of primary and secondary sources. Determine or clarify the meaning of unknown and multiple meaning words and phrases based on grade 6 reading content, choosing flexibility from a range of strategies. Acquire and use accurately grade-appropriate general academic and domain-specific words and phrases. Gather vocabulary knowledge when considering a word or phrase important to comprehension or expression. These are our rough unit plans for teaching equality in the 6th grade classroom. Every classroom is different and every student is different. Adaptations may be needed for each student based on individual needs. As teachers, we will monitor closely and ensure we are making the adaptations for our class to ensure comprehension. This semester has developed both mine and Jennifer's understanding of writing lesson plans. The 3 books we have chosen regarding the bombing in Birmingham are fantastic books and we highly recommend them to all of you. Please feel free to leave any suggestions to help improve our lesson plans, as we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you!